All right. Kimberly, do you want to come up and introduce your guests and program for today?
Well, good afternoon. I am Kimberly Oliver, and I will not stand here and take up too much time because Tommy and Allison have a great presentation that they want to give to you, and they can probably tell you a little bit more about it than I can. But I will say this about Tommy and Allison. I joined Dynamic Quest about a year ago. Allison joined just before me, and Tommy's been there almost 15 years. But it was not just getting a job, it was like joining a family, and that company truly is a family. So I'm going to introduce some of my stepbrothers and sisters, Allison Uber and Tommy Riggins, to do the presentation today. I brought a prize that was supposed to be whoever didn't win Split the Pot. I made some brownies. Oh. So thank you.
What?
Start first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So as Kim mentioned, I'm Allison Huber, and have really enjoyed joining the DQ team as well, not for the blizzards and the ice cream, but DQ is a big family. And I am the president-elect of Guilford Rotary. We had to push mine back a year because of Triad Honor Flight, which I'll be excited to come back and talk about at another time. But I had worked for the same company for 23 years and chose to go to work for Dynamic Quest because of all of the things they're doing for their clients. So I'm going to turn it over to Tommy, who's going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity, what to be looking at. We know that some of the folks in the room are retired, but that does not mean that you working on your smartphone shouldn't be on the lookout for some things. So without further ado, Tommy Riggins.
I think we're good. Thanks, Allison. I don't normally stand behind a podium unless I get a step stool. So can everybody see me pretty good? My son, he got my wife's side of the family genes. He's 5'10", and he looks at me and says, "It's your fault I'm not 6 foot." We think there's hobbits in our family, for those of you who might know what a hobbit is, but anyway. I'm Tommy Riggins. I've been with Dynamic Quest for 15 years. This July will be 15 years, and I'll tell you, it's been an exciting time to be in the IT industry. I grew up in a small family business, which is absolutely brutal. You never know if you're going to be able to make payroll. You never know if you're going to have your employees show up or not. And after a while, I just decided it was time for me to go work for somebody else where it's a little bit safer. So went to work for Dynamic Quest, and one of the things that's always been a passion of myself and of Dynamic Quest is cybersecurity. There's nothing that frustrates me more than a small business owner to call me up and go, "Tommy, my bookkeeper just wired a large sum of money to Mexico. Can you help me get it back?" "No, Bob, sorry, it's gone." Now, let's see what we can do to help you out to keep this from happening again. So again, I have a huge heart for small businesses, and especially whenever it comes to cybersecurity, because it's definitely a scary thing. And if you're not in a small business and you work for somebody else, you still have the potential to be the weakest link. I'm going to go through some slides. There's probably way more slides here than you guys want to listen to. Right now, you've got your lunch going. You're going to start falling asleep probably about 10 minutes into this, but I hope to keep it somewhat entertaining. But there's an overall theme that you're going to see, and that is security. Cybersecurity is just like your home security. It's a layered approach. You've got to do a little bit of multiple things in order to protect yourself. And so as you're watching this, as we're talking through it, in your mind, kind of roll through all the different layers. It's not one single silver bullet. It's not one single thing that's going to keep you from getting yourself into trouble or possibly compromising the business that you work for. It's little bitty things along the line. The other major piece of this theme is the weakest link, the absolute weakest link of any cybersecurity, if you work for somebody else, or if you're just your own employee or you're retired or what have you, is you. And so security awareness is one of the most important things. So kind of stepping through this, I think somebody said right arrow. Okay, good. We'll talk about agenda. Of course, I said cybersecurity, defense in depth. We'll do a brief overview of some different cyber security technologies. I'll talk with you about what to expect, some practical advice and things like that, and Q&A. And do me a favor, standing, just yapping at people. I like to be interactive. So if I hit something that tweaks your interest, raise your hand and ask me a question then, because I guarantee you, whatever you're thinking, somebody else is thinking it too. Cyber security perceptions. One of the biggest things that we see, especially with businesses, is why would anybody want to hack into my small business? I've got 5 employees, or I got 2 employees, or I'm a real estate agent, or I'm a what have you. The bad guys don't discriminate on size, revenue, anything. You are all targets. And so there's no picking the big boys over the small boys. And as a matter of fact, I'll tell you right now, smaller businesses are a bigger threat, or rather a bigger target for the bad guys. And when I say bad guys, I'm lumping everybody in there. We can call out different nationalities, different nations, what have you, nation states, terrorists or whatever. We can lump all that into just one thing, and just the bad guys. Bad guys might be the kid down the street who's playing with something he found on the dark web and just wants to see if he can get some attention on it. Or it could be a nation state that's looking to harvest income in order to further their agenda. So we'll just call them the bad guys. When business is broken up in its different departments, you've got the chief executive officer, the owner, the manager, what have you. And then you got, hopefully you got either an IT department, or you got a company like Dynamic Quest that you outsource your IT stuff to. And then there's you. Thinking about your position in that organization, you've also got to understand there's certain responsibilities that fall on you. So the manager or the executive, he's trying to keep his costs down as low as possible, trying to bring revenue into house, and trying to keep his expenses down as much as possible. The IT guy is wanting to spend all kinds of money for everything because he feels like you got to, have the best of everything to make the IT security work. And then there's you, who's either just an employee, or the business owner, or the partner, or what have you, within that organization, just trying to figure out what to do next. I'll bring this slide up because each person within an organization has a certain amount of responsibility that you've got to take on. And so having that awareness, having that understanding of that you could possibly be a risk, but also having that understanding that you may be one of the weakest links. Within an organization, you got multiple stakeholders. You got the investors, you got a government oversight, you got management, you got staff, and you got members. So not only are you responsible to, and part of what I'm sharing with you now is the why. And so when you think about your business, regardless of what size it is, or the person that you are, I'm going to give you a scary thought here for a second, but regardless of what role you have an impact of your circle and your realm of influence. I was a Cub Master, Scout Master. I was in Scouts for 14 years. And nothing drove me more nuts than for a parent to send an email and hit reply all. And now everybody's email address has just been spit out to somebody else. So every single person's got to take some responsibility for the data that you have and disseminating that data. So when you get those emails for that group thing, don't reply all. BCC so nobody else sees your email. That was a free tip. You get that one for free. We'll swap that one out for the lunch. Going back to my original topic, so security it's a layered approach. There's multiple layers to this. There's physical, there's managerial, there's technology, and then there's human element. So if you think about physical, this is just the physical access to your technology. And one thing that you guys are going to find out, I'm not going to use a bunch of fancy words. My real role at Dynamic Quest is sales. And so I talk to clients and I try to keep everything as, talk to me like a 5-year-old as I can so that everybody can understand. So if you got a really technical question, I'll try to do the best I can, but I'm dangerous to a certain point. Again, what I want to do is make this where it's an impact for you and it's something that you can take away. When I talk about physical security, this is not just If you've got a closet where you got your data, your servers or things like that, keeping that thing locked up, that's also your laptop. So some of you that have a laptop, when you go home at night, where are you putting that thing when you stop to go by the grocery store? We had an employee one time, it was absolutely horrible thing that happened. She left her laptop in the back seat. Her car was broken into, that laptop was taken. And of course, fortunately, we had the ability to wipe it from remote, but that's something you need to think about. Leaving your phone, leaving your laptop, while there's things to protect it, really good bad guys can figure out a way to get into it. So if you do carry a piece of technology with you, make sure you keep that thing in a secure position, or put it in the trunk, or make sure your doors are locked and make sure it's not exposed sitting out on a seat. So from the managerial piece of the in-depth, who whistles for their kids? Does anybody still whistle for their kids? I taught my son early on, when I whistled, he will instantly turn and look. And it's so funny. He just graduated from college, but he was telling me the other day, he said, I was somewhere, with a whole bunch of people. I heard this whistle and went, oh my God, my dad's here. Anyway, every time I hear that whistle, that's what I think about. So the managerial piece of it. So as a manager, you've got to understand that you have responsibility. You have not only responsibility for yourself, but you got also responsibility for your staff. And one of the most important things you got to make sure is that you as that manager is helping ensure that you got the right technology in place. And if you're not sure if you got the right technology in place, find somebody who's got some experience in it. But then the other thing that my daddy taught me a long time ago, you need a little bit of horse sense. You know what? You don't need to buy the Cadillac if that Ford is going to get you to point A from point A to point B. If you've got some very sensitive data, if you've got a company that's storing credit cards or social security information, you need to have a little bit more protection. If you're a company that's just, a nail salon, you may not need as much, but you still need something. The human element, and this is the one, this is where I really try to scare folks. Most of the time, it's not the bad guys sitting in a basement hacking into a system and all the code running through there like you guys have seen on TV before. Most of the time, that's not how it happens. It's very innocent. Joe Schmuckatelli gets an email. He thinks it's important. He clicks on it, and he's executed a piece of code that's gone into his system and has now encrypted everything in that system. And he gets a little pop-up that says, hey, you want your stuff back, you're going to have to pay us $10,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is. It's the person who clicks on that email. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I have seen some absolute good ones. There's one that came in my box yesterday that was from UPS. By God, that thing looks so legit. And you're going to see a thing here in a second that I'm going to show you to kind of help you remember, not to click on those things. So the takeaway that I want you to remember is you are the weakest link. Your company can have firewalls and protection, spamware, and all that other stuff that you hear about either on TV or radio, or not the radio, but TV, or read in the papers or whatever, however you get your information. The bottom line is you are the weakest link. You are the absolute weakest link within the system. If you just kind of take that on your mantle, that it's up to you, then that will help protect you and your company. So what systems do you need to protect? Now technology is absolutely ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So what is it you really are trying to protect? The real keys of the kingdom people are looking for, the bad guys are looking for data. They're looking to encrypt things. They're looking for a way to extort money out of you. But you got to think about all the different areas that technology is being stored, whether it's your phone, whether it's a thumb drive, whether it's a wireless device. Looking through this list, you can see all the different things that someone could use to get to your data or get to your information. So you got to kind of keep that in mind too. So what are some of the ways, or what are some of the layers of technology? I'm not going to hit on every single one of these, but as you look through this list, and Kim, thank you again for having us come. Kimberly, thank you again for inviting us. And if you want to share the slide deck out, you're more than welcome to share it with everyone here. Hopefully some of this will make sense to you, or maybe it's something you can share with some of the other folks on your team. First and foremost, you got antivirus, you got anti-spam, firewalls, VPNs. You got some other fancy stuff called SOC SIM. You got some really big words. What does all that mean? Each one of these is another layer of protection. A lot of times I'll talk to my clients and say, just think about your house. You got a deadbolt, you got a lock, maybe you got an alarm system, maybe you got lights in the front, maybe you got a dog. Each one of these is a layer of protection. So when you look at this list, think to yourself, what layers of protection do I have? Do I have anti-spam? Do I have antivirus in place? Do I have good passwords? Not, you know, your kids' birthdays or your birthday or whatnot, something that's easy to come up with. And speaking of passwords, I know everybody here hates the whole password world. Think of phrases. I see you smiling. Think of phrases. What you don't want to do is just have a word and some other characters or whatever. Think of phrases like, you know, I'm not saying this is a good one, but make today a great day. And the A is the ampersand, or you put some numbers into it to change it up a little bit. But those phrases will help you remember what that password is. So the takeaway I want you to get from this slide is, what am I doing with those multiple layers of my protection? This place is haunted, right? I felt the spirits move when I walked in. So think about the multi-layers of protection that you have at home or with your devices, but then also the company that you work for, what are those multiple layers of protection you got in place? How are we doing on time, man? Because I get excited about this stuff. The next thing, 12:40, I heard somebody say you're good. Amen, brother. Let's skip this one. Let's go on to the next one, the basics. So these are things you should absolutely have in place, whether you're mom and dad on the PTA, or you're a retired person, or you're working with a business. Some of these are you definitely want to have in place. You want a good anti-malware, anti-virus application. You want a good anti-spam. One of the things that your spam filter will do is catch some of those things coming through. It's not going to catch all of them, because the more walls we put up and more technology we put in place to stop the bad guys are spending that much time coming up with ways to get around it. So I see the guy over there in the law enforcement, or was that a fire person? Thank you for what you do, but you know this, the bad guys are working just as hard to do the bad stuff as we're working to try to do the good stuff. So something to think about too is the company you work for or the company that you manage or own. These are some good questions to ask. One of the things here that falls into crack, and I'll point out continuous maintenance and patching. We kind of buy technology, we put it in place, and then we start working with it, and we forget that it needs ongoing maintenance. Believe it or not, your laptops, your devices that you do business on, they need maintenance just like your car needs maintenance. You wouldn't go 100,000 miles without changing your oil, right? Well, you shouldn't go months without making sure you've got the latest and greatest patches on your machines. So patch maintenance and regular checkups on your machines. When I say machines, I'm talking laptop, desktop, your tablets, all those things that you use to interact with your data, or your pictures or what have you. Those things need to be looked at, whether it's you or somebody else, but they need ongoing maintenance. So don't ever think technology is set it and forget it. One bullet point on here that I really want to stress again is security awareness training. If the company you work for is not providing you with security awareness training on a regular basis, where you're doing something on a monthly basis, I would encourage you to ask why. The other thing with cybersecurity is if you don't keep it forefront on your mind, you'll forget about it. Because we're all so extremely busy. We've got so many things that are pulling on our strings, they're jerking our chains. You'll forget, oh, maybe I better be careful with this, this, and this. But if you've got that constant tickler reminding you to be careful, right, then it may slip out of your mind. So cybersecurity or security awareness training is something we encourage all companies to do. It's not expensive. It's a subscription. There's lots of people out there who do it. Obviously, Dynamic Quest does it. Whether you do it for me or whoever else, I would encourage you that if you work for a company that's not providing you this, just ask them why. Shouldn't we be doing this on a regular basis? Doing it once a year, not doing it again, ain't going to do anybody any good. Good friend of mine worked for a company that if you didn't take your regular training, you didn't get your year-end bonuses. That's how important these kinds of things can be. So I've already kind of talked about the different technologies that you have access to and the things that you're doing stuff with. And so this is just kind of a reminder. Don't forget, everything we have now just about is a smart device. You got smartphones, you got smart cameras, you got your watches, you got everything that's going on. So you got to kind of keep in mind all those different data points as well. Where should you be looking? Well, it's funny. I've already brought one up, a scenario up a few minutes ago where it's, be careful at work, but you got to be even more careful at home. If you're working from remote, man, you really got to make sure you got your P's and Q's in place. If you've got a company provided device, you want to make sure that you're not doing personal stuff on it. If you've got a machine at home that you're using to do business, you want to make sure that you've got that thing backed up. You want to make sure you got your antivirus. You want to make sure you got all those things so that you don't become that weakest link and compromise your business. And you got to remember too, when you're passing out those emails, you get that funny cat email, we all get them, and you forward that thing on. Are you sure that email was not email? Because what you've done is you've just spread the virus to somebody else, not knowing that you just did that. So here's where we go, timeout. Who's excited about football season coming up? Okay. It's baseball season, right? Any hockey fans out there? No hockey fans.
It's hard to get excited right now.
Brother, I've been a season ticket holder since day one. I'm starting to think what could be worse, a Panther fan or a Lions fan? All right, so practical advice. Stop, breathe, and think. Fear equals fake. And if it has a link, stop and think. One of the first things the bad guys will use when they're trying to get you to click on something in an email is, I need this now, or I need you to do this now, or quickly, I need you to wire money. That's the thing that gets the CEOs, the CFOs, the bookkeepers, the accountants. They get the phone call, or they get the fake email that says, hey, I need you to send, wire some money. Here's the ACH code, all those kinds of things. It's always, I got to do it now. It's got to do now. When you get that kind of stress put on you where something needs to be done quickly, that's when you really need to stop, think, and look at it and make sure you're doing what you need to be doing. I'll give you a terrible scenario. Good friend of mine who owned he was in the logistics side of a furniture company, very successful furniture company. He calls me up, he tells me what happened. The bad guys had started an email chain going with his controller, and he somehow had hacked in, changed a couple little letters, got it into the CFO's bucket. That email address got added to a string. Next thing you know, he's watching what's going on because of being copied on the emails, right? And so after a while, he then comes back and says, hey, we need you to change the ACH code to this, and we need you to send billing to here. And that's where I think it was about $150,000 ended up in Mexico. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's gone. So, and it's always those situations where I need you to do this quick. So when you see those, that's the time to stop and think. The usual suspects, and you guys, I mentioned that email is the worst. Something you want to be careful too is whenever you're surfing at night, or you're at work and you're doing your email searches, got to be real careful to where you end up. If you'll look up in the top left-hand corner of your browser bar, there is, you'll see where you got the little lock. You know what I'm talking about? Looks like a little padlock up there. If you don't see that padlock, get off that website. That means that they've got some stuff that's out of date, that's not legit. They may not be the bad guys, but the bad guys may have compromised their website. So now that they're gathering information, you land on that website. And of course, social media. Most of your social media or Facebook's on that stuff. They've got some things that will strip some of the bad stuff out. But again, the thing that you want to be careful with is that you're not propagating something that could be bad. Of course, our administration is going to put us in a ministry of truth now, so that's going to help us out, right? Just teasing. Practical advice versus business and personal. I've already mentioned this. Don't use your corporate email for personal uses. Don't use your corporate email or your business email for whenever it's personal. I know some of you small business guys do it, and I get it. It makes sense. I got my personal email. I got my business email. Why don't I just go ahead and use them both? You really want to try to separate those things out as much as possible. add another layer of protection in there. Everybody understands what phishing is? Phishing is when somebody is sending you an email trying to get you to click on something. Phishing, isn't this great? This is the whole text thing. Truist, my good friends over at Truist is trying to get me to click on a link because my account has been compromised and they want me to change my password. I've never had a Truist account, never had a BB&T account, but man, they're trying to get me, somebody's trying to get me to click on something. What was that? Hey, that money that's in that account, let's go ahead and transfer it over to my Pinnacle account. Sorry, if anybody's from Pinnacle. What's that? Yeah, let's do questions. Thank you. She's keeping me on time. Who told me to keep on talking? Yeah, question 1254. Anybody got any questions? Yes, sir.
From a security standpoint, what's your take on Alexa?
All right. So everybody uses, all right. So I work for a technology company, but if you ask my son, he would say, no, dad wants to live in a one room cabin up in the mountains with no technology at all. I actually have a little bit of distaste for technology because there's some wonderful things about it, but I think it has also done some damage to us as well. I had one, I kept it, I had it, we used it, me and my wife used it, and I don't know, something just said, you know what, I don't want to do this no more. There comes a point where you've got to decide what you're comfortable with. Again, I had this conversation with my son, he's 23. I'm like, son, everybody's going to know everything about you. He said, yeah, my generation's used to it. They're like, so what? They're used to the fact that everything is already known, whereas we are still kind of like that. We want our privacy. So I boxed mine up and got rid of it. Now, you want to keep it, you like it, and you feel safe with it, that's fine. Just make sure you got layers of protection in there. That was a good question. Anybody else?
How about multi-authentication?
If you ain't doing it, shame on you. You need to commit. You need to come up to the altar. We need to get this squared away. Seriously, straight up, multi-factor authentication is absolutely something you should put in place. You can do it with your social media. You can do it. Just about everybody has some form of it now. And if you're not doing it, you really should. So multi-factor authentication. So I got an Edward Jones account. I click on the little account and then it sends me a text message to my phone. And then I click in the little code into the bar. And so if you're doing business with somebody who doesn't have that, I'll ask them why. Because that's one more layer to help protect you. Great question, though.
Question, how are you talking about protection from Alexa? Layers of protection from Alexa?
Just be careful of all the different stuff that you say.
Oh, she hears everything you say.
Keep in mind, that's a wireless network. And if that wireless network is compromised by your next door neighbor, I'm not saying it has happened. I'm just saying it's just something to think about. I mean, if you love your Alexa and you use it and you feel comfortable with it, that's fine. I guess I would just be careful whenever you start spouting out social security numbers or credit card numbers. And if you're comfortable doing that, again, it's just like the insurance guy. And I love insurance guys too. It's the insurance. It's kind of that analogy of, do I really need $5 million worth of insurance for my wife whenever I kick the bucket? Or is she going to be happy with just $4 million? So you got to kind of, appreciate you laughing over there. So you got to kind of think about, you got to put yourself in that situation. Are you comfortable with it? If not, then, do something with it. And again, it's not to scare everybody to go home and throw away their Alexa. For me, it's just something I made a decision not to do it. My son's generation, oh my God, they love it. They do everything. They do Venmo, they do everything. And that's fine.
What about Wi-Fi range extenders? Do they have less security than the original Wi-Fi from a router?
As long as you change that, as long as you have, no, they're not less secure, but as long as you change the code, for one, the SSID, I think it is, as long as you make sure that base code is changed and then you change from the factory settings. Whatever that factory setting was, password, get rid of that, put something in there, and make your Wi-Fi code kind of something complicated. Don't make it, don't make it your home house and your address. The Johnsons at 221 or just the Johnsons or whatever, because, it's not that hard to figure out where the Johnsons live. So just something to think about. Yes, sir.
Very hesitant to say they didn't ask about this.
Oh, this is going to be the best question yet.
It's just
proliferation with me and other people I know with pornography. Every time you touch something, down there, you got something on the coat device. Next thing you know, you got somebody that have any of that on.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And right. So it's not just you. It's not just you. As one of the managers at Dynamic Quest, every time somebody goes to our website and logs in a lead, I get those. So I probably get propositioned by the Russians or some lonely woman or whatever, probably 20 times a week. Again, there's where you just got to be very diligent in making sure that whatever you click on, look at, do is, because whatever you do, don't go away, ever. Yes, sir. And the prize goes to the guy back in the back who is not surfing porn. That's a good question. Again, and there's some things that you can put in place that some web filtering and some DNS filtering that you can put in place to help keep you from going to the wrong spot. Anything else? Well, folks, it really has been a joy. I appreciate it. I grew up in Davidson County, so it was good to come over here to Thomasville. I don't get over here very much. Don't get out of the house very much because we're still stuck in the house. But if nobody else has got any more questions, I guess I'll turn it back over to you.